Welcome to this maintenance blog, which is about the Sterling Alternator Protection Device, which protects our 24 volt alternator. As you know, with the Battle-Born lithium batteries, which I installed a few videos ago, they do have their own battery management system installed, which means that they can shut down the batteries if the voltage gets too high or too low. Other ways that there might be a sudden disconnect is if there is a wiring problem and the wires disconnect, or somebody could simply switch the battery switch off, which would also cause an instantaneous cut-off to the alternator. The upshot is that the diodes in the alternator could fry, which is why we need this Sterling Alternator Protection Device, which basically has sacrificial diodes which protects the diodes in the alternator. It comes in a 12 or 24 volt version, which is very easy to install. But don't supply the fuse of the wire. I wish I'd known that beforehand, because I could have ordered it, because I'm waiting in Panama for everything to be imported from the United States. Instructions, which are very, very clear, I must admit, and the Sterling box, and not a lot inside. So one of those is just the connector for the alternator, and the other one I think is just for an alarm. Positive in, negative out, and that's it, and then the other side goes to the alternator. I've got a whole bilge full of wires here that I've pulled out that I can reuse. Now the only other thing was the spade fuse in this bit of wiring. So I'm going to splice the 10mm onto this. It's okay being overgauged, not undergauged. I just wanted to double check that was actually tin copper, not aluminium, or aluminum as you Americans say. So all I did was just apply some heat to the end, and what happens if it's copper, they kind of ball up at the end. You probably can't see that. If it was aluminum or aluminium, it would just be brittle and break off, but copper kind of just melts into a ball, and they've both done that. So that is tin copper, which means I can splice those together no problem. So I'm using this type of connector with the solder in the middle, so it actually solders the wire together as you heat shrink it. Perfect. Okay. So I'm just cutting this insulation back to the bulkhead. So as instructed, I wanted to fit it as close to the alternator as possible, but I also wanted to fit it in a place where I could see the LED warning light by just flipping up the engine bay lid. Despite having a bilge full of 10 amp wire, I only had the blue version, so I had to put red shrink wrap on just so I could differentiate between the negative and the positives. So I've got to get these wires onto the negative and the positive terminals down here, which isn't the easiest thing to get to, and you're supposed to put it on the inside of the existing ones so they don't fall off, but it's going to be a bit of a squeeze to try and get those off. I'm just going to add a bit of red shrink wrap over the top of the positive when it's done, just so I don't get those mixed up. So the negative fits. So the positive is actually looks like a 10mm. So So that needs to be changed. To kind of bring it over the top. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of tissue down there just in case anything drops off, because I don't want to lose it down the bilge and have to spend the next half hour looking for it. So I've got a 10mm socket on that one. Don't know why they're different. Now, I recommend you put this on the inside because it's a protection device and that's the last thing you want to drop off. So there is a handy knockout for the wires to fit through, but when I knocked it out it was a bit sharp, so I had to file that down a little bit just to smooth the edges. .10 amp cable with a 5 amp fuse. It's rated at IP68, so if there's any water gets into it, it's still safe. Put the cables along there, around the back of the alternator. So that was that. But just a reminder that this alternator protection device is not an alternator regulator, which is a mistake I made. I presumed that once I'd put this protection device on, that was it, but that wasn't the case. What I needed was an alternator regulator, which I didn't realize at the time, and obviously there's more expense involved. So in the next video I'll be installing the Wakespeed WS500 alternator regulator. And so the fitting of the Wakespeed 500 should be fairly straightforward, although it does have a lot of wires. But if you own a boat yourself or you've been following along with these blogs, you'll realise that nothing ever goes according to plan. Battleborn has recently bought out Wakespeed, so for a one-stop shop for batteries, alternator protectors and regulators, check out the website links in the description below. So thanks for watching, and thanks in particular to our patrons who make all of these videos possible. We're a travelling family on a tight budget, so if these videos are helpful to you in any way and you're the type of person who likes to return a favour, then you can contribute by following the links to PayPal or Patreon in the description below, or check out the cruise shirts on our merch store.